Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. Today, I'm just going to talk about what I'm eating right now and why. So, what my meals typically look like. I get asked that a lot. You would imagine, like, what are you eating? I was like, most people would have no desire to eat a lot of what I eat. I occasionally explain it, but and they go, "Oh, really?" And I give them a simpler plan, give them something maybe more palatable. This is where I am. And I say that because we have to allow ourselves to progress and change in our understanding of what a healthy lifestyle looks like or is for us, what disease prevention in our efforts, prevention looks like for us. We have to let ourselves move forward and change. Otherwise we get stuck in a routine. We get stuck in doing the same thing almost religiously often religiously, without thought for something more, without letting ourselves grow. We fall in love with the doctrine, and that keeps us from learning and improving and moving forward, or being open to hearing some way that helps us level up, helps us improve and change. Because if you get stuck there, you're gonna nothing is perfect. There is no perfect. We don't really truly understand what ideal is. We're all searching, we're all experimenting, we're talking to each other, especially it's great about the internet and the communities that form, as long as they're open and they allow dialogue and discussion and room for people to change and grow. There's some general principles of biochemistry that we now understand that tell us how weight loss works. For the most part, there's still a lot of question and argument over that. But safe to say the standard recommendations don't work too well for that. So you got to be in a progressive space, listening to people who are in that progressive space to really understand that biochemistry. But there's a mechanism we can show. This is what allows for fat burning. This is what helps you cut off cravings. And so that you'll see that in my diet, or the way I'm eating right now. Those principles can stay there, but the fine tuning, the nuance, what's working for you based on your activity level, based on your current level of hormone balance, insulin sensitivity. Whereas if you're in the process of losing weight, you're going to eat one way but if you're maintaining, or you're trying to, improve with like muscle, once you've lost weight, increase muscle growth or retention or performance in a certain activity, then your diet will change to accommodate your activity, your performance. It's not the same. Athletes should not eat the same. I'm not going to eat the same as someone who's trying to lose weight. Don't do what an athlete does if your goal is to lose weight. Athletes aren't trying to lose weight. They're eating to perform better. That's going to look very different. So we want to maximize those steps for fat loss, right? In a way that allows you to get the nutrients you need for your long-term health. And that is definitely possible. So it's not with a lot of supplements, with whole food, which whole foods are going to help you get the nutrients you need for your long-term health, along with whatever supplements you need on top of that. That's fine, but most of it coming from your food. And you're eating primarily whole food, not supplementing things like, what I mean, where you're having 2 or 3 meals a day of bars and shakes. That's not ideal. If you have to use those to get by, to hit a certain number of protein, like I do occasionally, hit a certain protein target, or after a workout, or because you're just, whole food is just not available. You get stranded, whatever it is, you get a situation where it's that or pizza, of course. But by and large, right, eating whole food in a way that meets your nutrients, your micronutrition, not just protein, carbs, fat, but the micronutrients you need for your long-term health. And there's always ways you can improve sleep habits and understand the importance of that. Sleep habits, breath work, cold exposure, other things that help us with recovery, help us better handle stress, because stress definitely plays a role in long-term health as well as weight loss. Okay. especially anything that helps with recovery is going to help with your long-term health. And my diet has definitely changed a bit. Some people say it may not. They may not see that big of a change. I think it's changed quite a bit over the last few years in an effort to improve my micronutrient density. So there's all those vitamins, minerals, and other antioxidants, things that I want to make sure I get, and as well as increase protein intake, protein consumption. I found that to be very, very important, much even more important than I realized before. And I'll get into that. But I used to eat a lot more salads and even more cooked vegetables. If you're familiar with my book, Low Carb Lifestyles and Weight Loss Made Simple, I emphasize eating a lot of vegetables to replace starchy carbs, help you feel full, feed fiber to the microbiome. I get into all that in the book. It's very simple. It was a very, that book at that time. So this was, I guess I wrote it in 2018, but it was half have been written for years previous, just in different sections. So it's something I pulled together from the last several years before that of my experience with weight loss, with what helped people. Okay. That I was working with clinically, I was working with on a one-on-one or on Facebook, so forth like that. And definitely emphasize protein. It's not a vegetarian by any stretch. It was protein and veggies by a large part. Not totally addressing the fact that a lot of people don't digest vegetables very well. So, until I began to notice some stomach bloating myself after eating salads and other raw vegetables. So when I began experiencing it, I was like, oh, maybe dig a little deeper, pay more attention to it. And realize not everybody digests vegetables that well. Sometimes as we get older, we lose that. It just, not completely, but we don't become as efficient at digesting those without gas, bloating, maybe some discomfort, especially raw vegetables. And certain vegetables just should not be eaten raw at all, ever, because they just need to be cooked to even get to any level of nourishment that's in them, because they're so tied up in the fiber, but also from the fact that they just cause gas and bloating. And they're difficult to digest raw. They are resistant to digestion. That is their self-defense. They can't run away, so they have these little nutrients and a lot of solid fiber in them that resist digestion, and that resist be able to basically be broken down further, and it will do that in our stomach. So we have two forms of digestion. One is acid based, and I'm not going to spend much time on this. I'm going to get to what I eat, but I want you to understand why. We have two forms of digestion: acid based, which is the small intestine. That's the early part after it leaves the stomach. Fairly large for our size as a species. We have a fairly large small intestine. And we have a fairly small large intestine comparatively. So depending on who you compare it to, if you compare yourself to a large cat predator, like a panther, something like that, mountain lion, then we obviously our large intestine is bigger than theirs because we can handle some plants. They don't usually eat plants. But if you compare us to like an ape, we have a much larger small intestine, much smaller large intestine. So that makes it, did I say that right? Larger small intestine, smaller large intestine. So small intestine, great for digesting meat, acid based. Okay, digest meat, fat, eggs, of course, would fill into that. Whereas our large intestine is based on fermentation, driven by bacteria and other microbes. That's where we digest plant matter. There's certainly some fatty acids formed from that, like butyrate is formed when we digest this plant matter, and a lot of those microbes and bacteria live off of those. Certain species live off of the butyrate burners. So, but you can also get butyrate from butter. So my point in telling you that is we can't think of our digestion as just one place, as just one thing, has one task. It's divided. We have a part of our stomach that's great for digesting meat and pulling the nutrients out of that. And then we have another part for that's fermentation that is meant for much more meant for better utilized for plant material. But sometimes, not everyone's works the same. Makes sense? So, or it doesn't work the same for your entire lifetime. So, as I mentioned, in order to release or absorb micronutrients like vitamins and minerals from plants, we have to separate them from their fiber that they're attached to through fermentation. That's what that fermentation process is, what can cause the gas and bloating. Meat, animal fat also contain vitamins and minerals, which are actually much more bioavailable during digestion because they aren't attached to fiber. They're just in, fat soluble vitamins and minerals are in they're in the fat, and the meat broken down, we can absorb those. So they're actually much more bioavailable than we have been led to believe by those in our nutrition authorities, if you want to call them that. So that's why it probably sounds strange to you. Beef, or really any ruminant liver, so beef liver, any ruminant liver, so ruminant being a cow, obviously, sheep, goat, deer, buffalo, you got it right there. So ruminants, they have the divisions of 4 stomach. They ruminate, chew cud, so they have 4 divisions of their stomach. Considered a ruminant. Not pigs, not birds. Okay. But it's considered the most nutrient dense food that we have available, followed by the other organs from ruminants. Okay. Like kidney, heart, brain. You get it. Spleen, and people like that, so anyway, those followed then from organs from other animals, of course, like chicken, goose liver, that kind of thing. Chicken liver, goose liver, those other organs, also very nutrient dense. I'm talking about micronutrients here, vitamins and minerals, not just the protein and the fats. Okay. But beef liver, ruminant liver, and the other organs are really our actual superfoods, much more micronutrient dense than any plant. And they're followed by egg yolks. Okay, so you got ruminant liver, other animals' liver, chicken, goose, so forth. Then here we go with more traditional. Now, traditional, if you think of traditional as in from the past, we ate these foods all the time. We used to eat liver. I mean, even 100 years ago, liver was a common, a common dish, certainly in the United States, probably in Europe as well. And in most other countries, it might still be, like South America, we can get it, maybe even Asia. But it used to be much more part of our diet. The other cuts have become much more popular, flavor, texture, all those reasons. But we've lost something there. So beyond liver and the other organ meats being superfoods, we have egg yolks. I know demonized, but egg yolks, very nutrient dense. Fatty fish like sardines, anchovies, even salmon, and shellfish like oysters. Okay. Clams, like mollusks, scallops. So, and then really red meat, it's just plain red meat, not the muscle meat, okay, is full of micronutrients. Many that you can't get from plants just because they're like certain vitamins like B12 just don't exist in plants, right? But overall, they're just more bioavailable through our digestion of meat rather than through trying to pull them from plants. So if we're looking at nutrients, I'm going to give you an example. Yes, I'm getting to what I eat, but this is a lot. This explains it. So you understand why I eat what I eat. Micronutrients in liver. Let's look at, like, say, a 3.5 ounce serving, which is about 100 grams for those of you in Europe and South America, Asia, maybe Australia, all those places other than the US where we still use ounces. But so 3.5 ounces, or about, which is a very small portion, 100 grams. B12. Okay. Could be, there's a lot of, so B12, again, only in animal foods. B12 is big in the liver. I looked at several sources looking for the exact amount. The number can vary anywhere from 400%, 700%, 1500% of the recommended daily allowance. I'm not sure why the variety, but 3.5 ounces, you're getting well and above more than the amount of B12 you need in a day. So huge percent, like again, 400 to 1500%. It's crazy. Vitamin A, that's a big one for liver. Some will even say, "Oh, don't eat liver; it's toxic because of the vitamin A." No, you can eat a decent amount of liver rarely without being. Now, if you're eating polar bear liver, that is toxic because that's such a big liver and it's full of vitamin A. But animal liver, you're good. 850 to about 1100% of the RDI. Just recommend daily amount, right? So these percentages are going to be based on that U.S. recommended daily allowance of these nutrients as I go through the percentages here. But we're still talking about liver, probably close to 1,000. Let's just say shoot through the middle, 1,000% of needed for B12, 800 to 1,000 for vitamin A, copper, 1,600%, iron, 80%, B2, which is riboflavin, 200 to 150%, vitamin K, hard to find sometimes in animal foods, 88%. And that can vary too. You'll see those variations. Might be some will give you raw liver versus cooked liver. That's the truth with vitamin C as well. Vitamin C, there's actually vitamin C in liver. You don't think it's a fruit thing, right? You'll see raw liver, say 30%. And I do know people who eat raw liver and raw organs. Yes. Some of you are thinking you're like, trying to like not heave right now. But if cooked, I've seen estimates down as low as 2% of your vitamin C requirements. If you're not eating much sugar, you don't need a lot of vitamin C. You don't need as much as others who are eating sugar, because your body can sometimes pick up sugar instead of vitamin C. They look very similar to the receptors. So less sugar, less need of vitamin C. But from 2 to 30%, if you eat it raw, most of you probably aren't eating it raw. And if you are eating it raw, you already know this because that's why you're eating it raw. You want to get more nutrients from it. But so it's not a big vitamin C source unless, again, you're probably eating it raw. Then in addition to those, some of the smaller amounts, choline, phosphorus, zinc, selenium, the other B vitamins like B5, B6, niacin, folate, Folate's actually 65% of your daily allowance. So that's pretty good too. Folate, very important for methylation. You might know that. Okay, next in line, egg yolks. So this amount I found was for 3 eggs, which to me doesn't seem that much. Some people might think, oh my gosh, 3 eggs. 3 eggs is not a big deal. To me, that's only about 18 grams of protein. Fat's not far behind it. So it's not a lot. They've got just about, egg yolks have the yolk. I'm talking about just the yolk. So a whole egg would have 18 grams. Yolk, not maybe half that. But egg yolks have nearly every vitamin in them except vitamin C, believe it or not. Choline, lutein, zeaxanthin. So choline is great for the brain. Probably know that. Lutein and zeaxanthin are great for the eyes, along with vitamin A. So about 35% of your vitamin A allowance in 3 eggs, 30% of your vitamin D, 15% of your E, a little bit of K, a little bit of vitamin K. And then, of course, B vitamins, 40% of B12, 45% of folate, 38% of riboflavin, and a few of the other Bs. So pretty nutrient dense, as well as 15% of your calcium needs, 48% of your phosphorus, 90% of your selenium, 18% of your zinc. Zinc's important. Very important. If we've got anything through 2020, we know zinc was considered by many as a great supplement for immunity. So lots of sources, animal sources for zinc we'll get to. Oysters, back to 100 grams, about 3.5 ounces. Okay. Zinc, here's a big zinc one, 600% of your daily recommended allowance. 600%. That's a lot of zinc in oysters. Talk about 3.5 ounces. Probably would be in a little, really less than would be in a can of most oysters. But if you had to do can, you're at least getting your zinc, getting 300% of your B12, 200% of your copper. Let's see, vitamin D, about 80%, a little bit of vitamin C, potassium, selenium, 90% of your selenium, and other small B vitamins as well, small amounts, trace amounts, B vitamins. I say trace, it might be single to low double digits. Okay. Manganese, 18%, phosphorus, 14%, magnesium even, which we think of as more of a green vegetable, right? 12% from oysters. So between eggs and oysters, you're getting some calcium and magnesium there. Sardines. I eat sardines as well. Make them regular part of my week. About 3 ounces of sardines. These are measurements for 3 ounces of sardines eaten whole. So if you get them, if you're going to do sardines, get them whole. And some of them, the canned ones, they've already like filleted them, they've cleaned them, they've taken all the skin off of them, all the bones out. You're just basically you're still getting some nutrients there, for sure. Getting the omega-3 fats, which definitely would be oysters as well, but getting the omega-3 fats, DHA, EPA, plenty of good protein, B vitamins, stuff like that, D vitamin. But when you get them whole, where they have the skin on them, it's the whole sardine. You're getting organs, bones, right, that are still in there that are soft enough to chew up. Just like if you get the salmon, like when I get salmon, I get traditional. I might just get a canned thing, right? Okay, I know people say things about canned food. To me, the benefits outweigh the risk, depending on what it is. But the canned salmon, the traditional style, like what I ate growing up, what our parents ate, has the bones in there that are kind of gotten soft, right? And the skin, there's collagen, there's the calcium, there's all the nutrients from the bones. Very important. So with the sardines, you get all the organs, the brain, right? All of that in there. The spinal column is in there, so you get the bones, right? Small amount, easy to chew up. You don't really notice at all. Skin, so you have the collagen, right? The supposed to be great skin, hair, all of that. Ocean-based collagen. So very nutrient dense, a little bit of everything. Vitamin D, 107% of your daily allowance. B12, 133%, and other B vitamins in small amounts. Calcium, about 20%. Selenium, 52%. Phosphorus, 33%. Then you still have some magnesium, potassium, zinc, for sure. And those sardines, very nutrient dense. Now, beef, just straight up, as I mentioned before, muscle meat, still very nutrient dense. 3.5 ounces. So a small portion, very small. 100 grams. B12, 102% of your B12. Again, that's B12 is only found in animal sources. Zinc, 77% of your zinc. Selenium, 53%. Several more B vitamins, phosphorus, choline, carnitine, creatine, some even magnesium and potassium in beef. Taurine, CLA, which is conjugated linoleic acid. Some people say, hey, that's great. Others say, it's questionable. Doesn't hurt to have it. Glutathione, fantastic antioxidant. So even the muscle meat, hard to beat. It's micronutrient dense. Now let's compare this to, okay, before I get to that, and I know I'm kind of sticking mostly to ruminant and fish, right? But even like pork chops. So some of those tend to be a little low in vitamin K. Vitamin K, except for like maybe eggs, had a decent amount of, small amount of vitamin K. Liver had more vitamin K for sure, 88%. But even a pork chop, 3 ounces of pork chop or 3 ounces of chicken, it's going to have, like, a pork chop's going to have 50% of your daily RDA. That's just 3 ounces. 3 ounces of chicken have about 40% of your daily RDA of vitamin K. Now, when we look at kale, so we're talking about kale is the big plant superfood, right? Eat your kale for all the micronutrients, right? Well, okay. I would argue getting to them, getting them broken down, digested, absorbed might be more difficult, maybe less bioavailable because of the fiber, because of the other, some other qualities of the kale that might keep you from absorbing them. But just look at nutrient content without getting too much into the bioavailability. 2.5 ounces, so about a cup of kale. Vitamin A, okay, 206% of daily recommended allowance. However, that's vitamin A from beta carotene, not retinol. If you get an animal source like liver or the other nutrients, the other foods I mentioned, animal-based foods I mentioned, it's retinol, which is the form that we need. It's the form that we absorb that we need. When you take in beta carotene, you've got your body has to convert beta carotene into retinol for it to be used as vitamin A. We don't have much use for beta carotene. That's a plant form. We need the animal form. We have to convert it. If you're able to convert it, you might convert about 30% of the beta carotene you intake into retinol. But very young and the very old tend to have a issue with this and really convert very little or none to retinol. So at best, 30% of the beta carotene is converted to a retinol, which is a vitamin A that you can actually use. Now, vitamin K, right? 684% of your daily recommended vitamin K. That's a lot of vitamin K in 2.5 ounces of kale, ton. But as I mentioned, pork chops got 50%, right? Liver's got 88 in just a few ounces. So there are other places to get it if you don't eat your kale, if you want something more bioavailable, so you're going to absorb more of what you're actually eating. Vitamin C does have a lot of vitamin C, 134% of your daily vitamin C. Or you could eat a tomato, much tastier than kale, or a bell pepper, if you want to. Just saying, plenty of vitamin C in those. Manganese, 26%. B6, 9%, not that impressive. No B12, because again, it's not an animal, so it doesn't have B12. Calcium, 9%. I think you do better with eggs. Copper, 10%. Yeah, that beat with a ugly stick by any of the animal-based sources I mentioned before. Potassium, 9. Magnesium, 6. Not that impressive for a plant. Potassium, 9. Magnesium, 6. You get that from fish, from sardines, easily. Oysters, for sure. Oysters got to beat 12% of magnesium, double of the kale. And about 3% or fewer of a few of the other B vitamins. Really? And so, and in that little 2.5 ounce cup, there's about 3 grams of protein. Not a lot. Not a lot. Not a lot of protein either. Not that you're eating kale for protein. I certainly wouldn't. But if you're looking at that, you get plenty of protein from these other sources, much easier. And you have all the micronutrients. I'm not sure why you would eat kale if you could just eat those other foods. So getting back to what I eat. But so now that kind of lays down some of the understanding of why I say you can get your micronutrients from animal sources. If you weren't familiar with that before, there's a lot of them in certain animal foods. Not a lot in processed foods. You're eating a processed protein bar? Yeah, not so much. I wouldn't trust those vitamins they put in there. Or a protein shake? You might get the protein if you're lucky. But I wouldn't trust a lot. I certainly supplement magnesium. Just help with sleep, help relax, and there's a low, and I tend to not hold on to a lot of fluid. Eating low carb, so a little magnesium never hurts. A little extra magnesium, but you can get the majority of micronutrients from animal sources, and they're again far more bioavailable. Starting with liver, egg yolks, oysters, sardines, and then good old-fashioned beef. So I've also increased, besides my micronutrients from whole food, I've increased my protein goals as well to at least, say, 0.8 grams per pound of body weight daily, with an actual goal of 1 gram per pound of body weight. And that's not easy for me. It isn't easy. It doesn't come easy. It's hard to eat that much protein and that much meat for sure. I definitely have to supplement to get up to that 200 often. Getting better at it. It's something that over time I've been able to digest more and more, and it's gotten easier as my stomach acid at feeding it meat has increased and improved, and become better able to handle it. So if that's a goal for you, I would say start with 100 grams in a day, so about a pound of meat to take down, and go from there. Let your body adjust to it and see how good you feel and how not hungry you are, how satisfied you are. But figure this: there's about 6 grams of protein per ounce of most meat, whether it's chicken, fish, pork, beef, whatever, or per whole egg, another 6 grams per whole egg. So that's a great way to kind of shoot from the hip and count how much you're eating. But especially since I rarely eat in the morning, I usually only eat 2 big meals, with the exception of an additional protein shake post-workout, like right after a workout for quick recovery, because I'm not trying to lose weight. So I try to take one in. Not that a protein shake keeps you from losing weight, but I'll tell you, I add a few things to it to help me with recovery, some carb to that. But it's usually beef-based, sometimes whey-based shake. But again, right after a workout for quick recovery, then I come back and start my big meal. If I'm not working out, I may not have that shake. I probably wouldn't have that shake if I haven't done some kind of workout. Resistance training is what I'm talking about. Not like going out for a walk or a light jog. I'm talking about resistance training, or like sprints, maybe, whether it's in the pool or in the out on the road, running. I might have a shake, or I might, depending on how late in the day it is, I might just get right to the whole food to start getting that in my body. But yeah, so I eat a lot of protein in each meal, about anywhere from 70 to 100 grams in a meal. And again, had to work up to that. If you're not sure about the absorption, if we can absorb that, we can. I actually did a couple podcast episodes looking at studies on protein absorption in one meal and ideal protein intake, the benefits of a high protein diet. If you want to take a look at those. Episode 45 was the benefits of a high protein diet. 47 was how much protein can you absorb in one meal or one time. So take a look at those. Gets into detail with that a little better with studies. But again, if I work out, as I mentioned, I have a protein shake. It's about 30 to 40 grams of protein. Weight loss is not a goal of mine. I'm as lean as I need to be. Quick recovery is more important to me right now, and being able to move forward, be ready for the next workout, right? So I will include a banana, maybe half a sweet potato with that. It's good, clean, whole food carb. Again, helps me recover. If weight loss is your goal, I'm trying to lose some fat burning, stick to the protein. You don't really need the carbs, honestly. It'd be more important if weight loss is your primary goal to just start to pull from energy, whether it's protein or other stored fat for your energy, rather than try to do a quick recovery through adding energy. The more energy you eat, so carbs and fat are both energy. The more carbs and fat you eat, the less fat your body has to burn, right, for its energy needs. So that doesn't mean you have to avoid them altogether necessarily. I would definitely reduce the carbs. You're definitely going to have to eat some fat, especially if you're eating animal protein, but you don't necessarily need extra. Okay. Your liver will use protein to make the glucose or glycogen as needed. I didn't realize that. So if you don't refuel your muscles after a workout, your liver will use liver glycogen, which it holds about maybe 400 grams, to not only to regulate your blood sugar, but to fill back in some of the glycogen needs of your muscles. And if it needs more, it starts breaking down protein to make more glucose, which it then pumps back into the bloodstream for your muscles to take up. Very, very much more regulated than just eating a big dose of carbs, right? Much more regulated, which goes right in and hits your system all at once, right? And if the poison is in the dose, as they say, then a big dose of carbs is going to be not as preferential especially for fat burning, as if your liver is regulating how much glucose is coming into your system, into your bloodstream, and going to those muscles. It definitely slows the process down, and which makes it puts a greater need on your body to burn fat for energy, to maintain blood sugar, for your brain to continue functioning, right, to work, all the needs of your organs. Now, the next meal after the shake is often about an hour later, depends on my schedule. Make it work with my schedule as much as possible. So that can vary, right? But 1 to 2 ounces of liver is what I start with, that to get the nutrients in, as I've explained. 4 whole eggs, and then usually about another 5 or 6 ounces of another whole food protein. That could be sardines, salmon, oysters, or just meat, just some leftover meat, red meat, something like that, or a combination of the two of those, maybe. To get to the 5 or 6 ounces, might be 3 ounces of one, 3 of another. So 1 or 2 ounces of liver, 4 whole eggs, 5, 6 ounces of other whole food protein is that next meal. There's not much else to it, just those things. And that's a good amount of protein there. One ounce of liver has about 5-ish grams. Okay, so let's do an ounce of liver, 4 whole eggs, that's 24-ish grams. So there's 30 right there. 6 ounces of another protein, that's another 18. So we've got 30 plus 18, that's 48. So close to 50 right there. So you add the protein shake to that, and you're looking, 50 plus the 30 to 40, or 80 to 90. Sometimes I get 200 by lunch, but lately it's been 80 to 90. But that liver, the eggs, the extra sardines or meat, oysters, whatever, that's not just protein and energy from fat. It's my infusion of bioavailable micronutrients, as I explained before, the retinol from vitamin A, right? Vitamin A, retinol, vitamin D, E, K2, all the B vitamins, zinc, selenium, iron, calcium, the DHA and EPA, the omega-3s, right? And then the fish bones, collagen from that, and the fat, as well as even some magnesium, right? Choline, all those, fantastic, right? Getting that from this is my meal to really, I have a variety of animal sources of micronutrient dense animal sources for lunch, midday. If I haven't worked out, usually just this meal for that day. So if I haven't had like a shake because I didn't work out, then I may just increase that protein. That 5 or 6 ounces might get a little bit bigger. So I still have the couple ounces of liver, 4 whole eggs, and then that dose of protein, additional protein, might be a little bit bigger. Once a week, I don't eat till dinner. I do like a dinner to dinner fast. That's actually today for me. So I don't work out that day. I might take a walk, might walk a couple miles, good pace. Obviously, I'm not going to get as much protein. I'm not going to meet my protein goal that day, but fasting. So it's like a workout for my metabolism, for my fat burning metabolism. So I usually do eat a good dinner, good sized dinner. I don't sweat it. I just eat till I'm full, and try to get a variety. Still try to include the liver and then whatever we're having for dinner, and to try to get as much of the protein food in me as possible at dinner. Dinner's a protein priority, right? So that lunch was micronutrients that has protein with it, obviously, but I can definitely eat 12 to 16 ounces of protein, whether it's beef, pork, chicken, fish, whatever, for dinner. If it's a ribeye, I mean, I finished several that were over a pound for dinner. So, and enjoyed every bit of it. I might for dinner have a portion, a serving of some cooked veggie. So sometimes we like to, or a fermented veggie. So sometimes we saute Brussels sprouts or green beans, something like that, just because we like them, not because I feel like I need them. We enjoy them. Everybody likes them. So I include them. Hey, it's like a just in case, bowl policy. Maybe a little bit of fiber helps the biome. I think that's still out a little bit. That judgment's still out. But some Brussels sprouts, some green beans. If it's fermented, it's usually kimchi, which I really like. It's kind of spicy. That's why I like it, I think. And bitter. So I like bitter and spicy, savory. But kimchi's fermented, so it definitely has some bacteria in it. It has not been pasteurized. So I get that fermentation, some more bacteria. But the majority of what I'm trying to eat is a majority of my meal. The focus is protein for dinner. Might have some low sugar fruit like tomatoes, which could be in the form of like a real natural sugar-free salsa that I put on my meat. Maybe some cooked bell peppers or onions or zucchini, right? Just squash, some kind of squash, some other, instead of the other veggies I mentioned. Yes, they're nightshades. They don't bother me that I've noticed yet in my life at this point. 10 years from now, who knows what I'm going to say about nightshades. I do love them. They're some of my favorite plant foods. Garlic, tomatoes, bell peppers, onions, love them. Zucchini is great. Cooked together, to me, that's tasty. And that's why I eat it. That's why I like it. And I haven't felt any issues with it. I know other people do have issues with nightshades. Avoid nightshades if you have an issue with nightshades, obviously. Find the diet that works for you in that regard, holding to principles that work. But again, I don't have a lot of it, typical serving amount. For like a sweet toothy kind of dessert, right? May have some dark chocolate, like 80, 85% dark. I've done 90 too, but usually it's 80, 85%. With maybe some nuts like pistachios or something after dinner, just salty, crunchy, right? A little dark chocolate in there for the bitter. It's a nice after dinner, especially if I'm not getting enough calories. I had enough calories that day because of the way I'm eating, right? With the workout, then I can start to feel that like, okay, I haven't had enough. I can feel it. If I don't get enough, I won't sleep so well. But again, if I eat too many nuts, I also feel the bloat. My body tells me like, you ate too many nuts last night. So I start to notice that. So I have to pay attention to that. Like, how many am I going to eat? Okay, keep it a small portion. Not so much that if I feel a bloat, my body's telling me we had a hard time digesting that. Probably don't want to eat that many again. Right? Listen to that. That's when you listen to your body. How did it respond afterwards? Not, what do I want right now? What am I craving? That's not it when you listen to your body. For most cases, especially if you're trying to lose weight, hormones are a little off probably. And if you listen to your body, you're probably not going to be able to stay on your diet. I'm just going to say, I want pizza. But most of what I eat is whole food. Carbs are managed based around the workout, or if I'm, what I've been doing that week as a whole, activity wise. And whole food protein is emphasized. That's the basis of every meal. That's the center. That's the largest portion. Carbs are managed in smaller portions as needed or as desired, but like the veggies. But some people will question that the amount of protein I'm eating. I've had 2 registered dietitians as well as a number of other nutritionists on this podcast who have recommended 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. That sounds like a lot to most people. But it was the 2 RDs, registered dietitians, who have been through the education of our standards, right? Nutrition Academy, our standard nutritional guidelines, and completely disagree with them, right? Michelle Hearn, who wrote The Dietitian's Dilemma. She's a ultra runner, great dietitian, eats a lot of meat. And Diana Rogers, who wrote or directed or produced Sacred Cow and wrote the book with Rob Wolf, also RD, and regenerative farmer, really promoting regenerative farming as a better solution for our food and farming practices. Again, 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. You figure 1 pound of meat, it's about 96 grams of protein. So that's I think Michelle being the little, she's kind of a, I say, smaller frame ultra runner. You can imagine she eats a couple pounds of meat every day. I remember that, and you wouldn't think so to look at her. She runs it right off. Her body turns it into energy and maintains the muscle that she needs. But if you look at, like, say, a pound of, say, a ribeye, 1 pound ribeye, that's going to have close to 96 grams of protein overall, about maybe 1,300 calories. Not a lot of calories. And you won't be hungry for much else when you eat that. There's not a lot of room for much else, right? Most, let's say a pound of, let's say you get a 90-10, which is a little lean, but 90-10 hamburger, or even 80-20, you're looking at maybe anywhere from 800 to 1,000 calories. Again, not very much. And when your body converts that protein to energy, yeah, there's some fat in there that will be used for energy, but both, fat doesn't really elevate insulin much. Protein does elevate insulin, but its structure. And the only way it turns into energy is if your liver converts that way. So a very regulated process. So you just won't be hungry for much else. Many times we have cravings. It's because we're chasing our craving for protein. And you'll hear people say, well, you don't need that much protein. Okay. No, you'll say you need that much water. You don't need that much, a lot of things. But what to survive, right? To live. But what is optimal? It's not about getting by on the least amount of protein that you need to survive. And if you can figure that out for what your body's protein turnover needs are, that it recycles every day, and add to that your activity level. But what is optimal? Eating the minimal amount doesn't sound that beneficial to me. I know it sounds like you're just trying to get by. Optimal amount, according to these experts, according to in my experience, 0.8 to about 1 gram per pound of body weight. Shoot for getting 100 grams a day, and then adjust up from there. Get used to it. Add on to figure out what your goal weight is. Eat that much in grams of protein, and chances are you'll get there pretty consistently, because again, it kills your appetite. So it's very satiating. You're just not going to have cravings. If you eat a big pork chop, big steak, and that's maybe salad or whatever, or just that, not the potato, not the bread, you're not going to be hungry for much else. One more bite of that, you can get to the point where one more bite, you're just like, oh no, I can't do it. I'm full. Your brain's telling you no more. You're full. Till they bring the dessert tray around, right? And you see the dessert tray, and your brain's going, oh, nutrient, lots of energy food, right? It's fat and sugar mixed together. Suddenly you may feel hunger. And as you take a bite of that, oh, you want the rest of it. You won't just have a bite. You'll eat the rest of it, because it's like hits the brain, dopamine response. This is awesome. Eat the rest of it. We'll store it all as fat. We'll burn it later. That's exactly what's happening. It's too nutrient dense. You certainly don't need it after eating dinner. But that's how our body responds hormonally, with the dopamine, with the insulin, with the ghrelin. Okay, driving the hunger and the feel good. It's like, eat more of that chocolate ice cream, right? Eat more of that cake, that pie. Stimulating hunger for the purpose of putting on macronutrient dense, more storage of energy for a time when you're starving. If you're just eating the steak, you're just not going to be that hungry. And you can still under eat in your calories for what you need. You still under eat. You still come up short in the calories needed. So if your blood sugar stays low most of the day, you're having just a couple protein-rich meals, not adding up to very many calories. When you do need fuel, you're going to burn fat. You're going to burn stored fat, and you're not going to be hungry. You're going to be satiated, not hungry. Nobody wants to be around a hungry dieting person, right? But if you're losing weight and you're not that hungry because you're eating the protein that you need, you're a much nicer person to be around. So just a little advice. No one wants to be around a hangry person. But yeah, I included links to articles from many of this nutrition data on the beef, the yolk, the egg yolks, the sardines, the liver, as well as the kale. I included the kale. They want kale left out. I mentioned kale as a comparison, and you can compare for yourself. Look at the numbers, look at the micronutrients, and realize meat's more bioavailable just because of the way we digest it, the way we can break it down. They're fats. Most of these, or a lot of those vitamins are fat soluble, A, D, E, and K, right? All fat soluble. And so you're going to absorb that fat. It's not bad for you, right? It's naturally occurring fat. You don't need to load up extra fat. You don't need to lump a whole avocado on top of your steak. Now, if you're not trying to lose weight, then yeah, okay. But maybe you could have a couple slivers of it though if you're trying to lose weight, or maybe a little bit of butter with something that you need. If you're eating the veggies, put on the veggies. If you're going to put it on your steak, a pat of butter, fine. Don't feel like you have to eat more fat. Eating more fat is not eating additional fat other than what's occurring with the whole food. Animal protein, really make it more protein food, a food where there's more protein than anything else. Okay, that's how you know it's a protein food. Not does it have protein in it. As we saw, kale even has some level of protein, 3 grams and 2.5 ounces, right? It's not a protein food. It's a vegetable. It's a carbohydrate with a lot of fiber. It's a fiber food. Potatoes might have some protein in them. It's a starch. Peanuts, a great one, has a little bit of protein, has some starch, has some fat. It's a fat. And carbs. Some nuts are more, they're fat foods. They're not protein foods. They have some protein in them. Mostly they're fat foods. They add fat primarily. So that's where you want to maybe be measured, figure out what you need to help you lose weight. Might just need to go with protein foods and the fat that comes with them without adding extra fat. If you can weigh with a little avocado here and there, nuts now and then, not a lot, maybe a smidge of cheese here and there, because that's also a fat food that also contains protein. But keep it a couple ounces, 2-3 ounces. You're good. Focus on the protein, and you'll see that your body responds well to it, not only from just being satisfied, feeling good, getting all your micronutrients, as I mentioned before, from these sources, but from it's just going to burn fat more efficiently. You're just going to lose weight and you're going to feel better, and you have less of the up and down energy that you have from eating a lot of starch and sugar. Less insulin waves, eating 2, maybe 3 meals a day. So if your insulin waves of insulin, and less of them because they'll last as long because it's mainly protein and some fat as opposed to sugar, carbs. Whatever you do, stay away from processed food, eat whole food, whatever balance that looks like. Whole food protein, whole food vegetables. If you do fruit or some low sugar fruits, like I mentioned, like the cucumbers or tomatoes or peppers, whole food. Go for whole food. Less processed food, the better, though. You'll stay away from the sugar, the seed oils, the industrial oils, like soy, corn, canola, safflower, sunflower, all those, cottonseed, rapeseed. Stay away from those. You're going to be much better off with whole food across the board, with those processed foods really not entering your diet much at all. So anyone that recommends differently, you might want to avoid taking advice from them if they're recommending a lot of processed food as foods to help you lose weight or even for long-term health, because they're fortified, because the cereal box says they've added nutrients to it, or the bread bag says they've added nutrients to it. Not naturally occurring. And so whatever they've added nutrients to is probably very nutrient poor, not just from protein, but from micronutrient poor. And so they've fortified it with these chemical lab-based nutrients. I'd question that. So go with whole food, decent amount of protein, 2 or 3 meals a day. You're going to be great. You will, if necessary, lose fat over time, or whatever you're doing activity wise, you could probably fill in the gaps with just that, with the 3 meals, or even 2 if you eat enough. But that's what I eat. That's why I eat it. pick and choose from that. Start small with some of these things if they're unusual foods for you. Egg yolks, you should be able to jump right into. Sardines, yeah, put a little mustard on it that doesn't have sugar in it, right? Or some horseradish or something. Salmon should be an easy one. Oysters can take some work. Again, season with something that's not soy, not sugar, right? Like a mustard or horseradish, something like that. Liver, I'll try the same. Find ways to make it. I cook it on, if you're going to cook it on very low heat. I put mine in the crock pot on low. Whereas I cook my roast on high in the crock pot. Liver, low. We want all those nutrients to be in good condition. Low heat. Cook it just enough that you can handle it. So keep it rare as possible. Enough that you can eat it and handle the texture consistently. Whether you eat a larger amount every few days, 2 or 3 days, or you eat a small amount like I do almost every day, it's the most micronutrient, bioavailable source of those nutrients that you're going to find. It's a superfood. So whatever you do, try to get a little liver in your diet. You'll cover a lot of areas in one food. Have a great week.